Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Pep Talk on the Joe Maxwell Show. I am your host, Joe Maxwell. Today we'll be talking about child sexual abuse. Sexual abuse, what is sexual abuse? It's being touched in a way that feels very wrong, being forced or encouraged to have sex, or made to touch an adult sexually, even when you don't know what's happening. It's also when you're being shown sexual films or pictures. And the question is, sexual abuse, when is it the perfect time to tell your children about it? We're about to find out, but before we introduce our guest today, take a good look at who they are. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Before we kind of go into things, I think I'm just going to let you guys introduce yourselves quickly. Over to you, Jennifer.
Okay, so Jeniffer Barker Hodges. I am a mother of two wonderful daughters. I'm also a program manager working currently at BAT.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Zimbabwe, half of Zimbabwe. Tell us a little bit about your background just before we go. Yeah.
Well, I am half Zambian, half English, but I was actually born and brought up in Zimbabwe.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, so we've still got the blackness in her. Just in case. Over to you, Julie.
I'm Julie Alatise. I'm a solicitor specialized in child protection. I also run a consultancy company called Julie Consultancy. And what we do in that company is to help and assist children whose parents are unable to care for, to place them with extended families in Nigeria.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. So now, guys, you know why we're talking about this. We definitely have an expert in-house who will hopefully help us shed some light into this topic and hopefully help us as parents to kind of identify certain things that we need to. And obviously, we've got Jennifer as well, who will be speaking from experience. So thank you guys for joining. So when I say experience, don't worry, you don't have to sweat like we know you didn't go through that. Right, so I'm just going to pass on to, any form of child abuse for me is it just makes my heart palpitate a whole lot. It makes me breathe so heavy, so hard, and I'm not sure, maybe it's just based on growing up, and just hearing things all over the place. So I think before we kind of go into this, because we're only going to be talking about this, so we kind of have a bit of time. I think the best thing to do really right now is let's talk about the indicators first, right? How can I identify that a child is going through that before we kind of go into anything? How can you identify that a child is being sexually abused?
Okay. Before I say anything, I would like to say that whatever I say here is not a legal advice. Mm-hmm. And if you need legal advice, I advise you to go to a solicitor who will be able to listen to your full story and be able to advise you appropriately. Mm. So anything I say here is just going to be based on the scenario I've been given here. Okay. How do you know that a child is being abused in any way or form? The first indicator is they'll be very withdrawn. Mm. They'll be very quiet, lack confidence. Some of them become hyperactive because they don't know how to express what they're going through. And some of them will actually speak up. Some children are bold to actually say it out in school to anybody who care to listen to them at any point in time.
So is there, given that, because I know you did say that children, they go quiet and everything, but some kids do have the personality, that's just who they are. They're just quiet children. So how can you then identify, how can you almost dice through, that's just your personality and something feels a bit weird? Does that mean that it would have to, how can you tell the difference from a child that's quiet and a child that's just gone quiet?
When a child is suffering any form of harm, whether physical, emotional, sexual or otherwise, personality will not come to play. It will be the child displaying the signals of being different. No matter how quiet a child is, a parent would definitely know when they're extra quiet, when they're extra withdrawn, when they're extra fat. You pick these little signs. A child that just eats 2 slices of bread started eating 4. You need to watch out. Why is this child eating like this? Or a child that eats normally 2 slices of bread will barely finish a slice. These are signs that makes you know that something is wrong with this child. So whilst we know that children have some personality and some character in them, you will spot the difference in when they're going through something. So there's this extra bit that gives you that indication.
Right, so let's bring this home a little bit, because I think I just wanted for the benefits of our viewers to kind of start thinking. So as we talk through stuff, they can hopefully start thinking about, perhaps there's an indication I should be looking at. So let's bring this home. Now, recently I heard about, I think the reason we're talking about this is for 2 reasons. Someone actually asked for us to talk about this. Recently, I heard the news about a mother who found out recently after her child graduated from the university that the father, who is a husband, so they live together, has been sexually abusing their child. I think she was like 21. So she found out after she graduated from university. How do you begin where do you start from? So I guess the question is, what is it? Is it that the mother has been, what has she been doing for the last 24 years?
Yeah.
24 years?
I would question how the mom did not know. Was it a case of she didn't know?
I didn't get the full story, but it was, she found out literally after graduation.
When the child is now an adult.
Yes.
I think some of the things that I would say in line of duties, especially when I do my cases, with cases like this, is that sometimes this parent just overtrusts the males in their lives. They just overtrust the husband, overtrust the uncles, overtrust that neighbor next door that is always buying chocolate for their daughter, the husband that is buying unnecessary gifts for the child. And, they just feel, I think they're a bit insensitive, if I can use that word. And also, again, it depends on the background. In Africa, where I come from, Nigeria, for example, you're not allowed to say anything negative about adults. They tell you to shut up. You can't say that about Uncle Joe or Uncle Bill. You can't say that about your dad. You can't even say that. Even in some families, actually, the mother know about it. They're aware of it, but they can't say anything because they believe it's become a secret for the family. And it's also happening even in the white families as well. They call it names. They have a name for it in families. And I think what's most important is that we're now raising children who are in that age where they could be abused, and them being vulnerable to such abuse. We need to be sensitive. We need to make sure that we pay attention to our girls, and not just girls, the boys. The boys are also sexually abused nowadays. So we need to be very sensitive. What is my child doing differently? Why is my child beginning to pick adult languages? These are the things that you need to look out for that gives an indicator. I think there's something going on here.
Let's just hold that thought for a minute. So Jeniffer, you do have 2 girls, you said earlier. And, I do have 2 girls as well. And I just cannot even imagine the thought of it. It just makes me sick. I think before going into whether or not we trust people around us, we're very trusting. You kind of there's no reason not to trust people around you. But I guess having 2 girls, what are you doing to make sure that they don't go through, or such doesn't happen around them or to them?
I think from quite early on, you need to start talking to them about what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, and the fact that your body it's your body. Nobody should touch your body, and it doesn't matter who it is. If somebody tells you not to tell mommy something, you've got to tell mommy, because then you know that there's something wrong. And I've always said that to my now 13-year-old. I've said to her, anybody ever says to you, don't tell mommy, and mommy will be angry, then you know you need to tell me. But also, I'm quite selective about who comes into my home and who's around my daughter. I'm selective about her going for sleepovers. For one, I don't allow her to go for sleepovers. But, you know, that's me probably being a bit overprotective. But I don't allow her to.
But there's nothing wrong in being, there's nothing being protective of it. Because I think most people, I mean, we're still going to come back to, you know, where it often happens with the close relatives.
Exactly.
But sometimes, you know, allowing them to go on trips like that are things that actually, that's where they get exposed to things. Because it could be a case where the person, the friend that they having that with has been, you know, has been molested by somebody, and then they get exposed to things. Now let's talk about the, you know, where there's a commonality in this, right? Because you wouldn't get a stranger coming to molest your child, right? And Julie, you said earlier on that, you know, we trust, you know, as mothers, you just trust. And I think half the time, it's not because we want to trust, we don't have a choice. It's like you have to trust, right? Or you have to go to work. You know, you're working outside town and you need, the only person that can stay with your kids is your younger brother or your cousin, or, you know, a relative needs to come and stay with you. Can we talk about that in terms of the impact, you know, how it's almost like, how can you then differentiate? I don't want people to come to my house because I'm just paranoid. I don't want them to touch my kids. So actually, you just need that help. You need to trust somebody to help you with the kids. And the only person you have is your younger brother. Then what?
Well, what I would say is, I'm not a social worker, and this is so much social work. I'm a lawyer, so mine is to say whether there's an harm that's been caused to a child or not. And if it is it long-term harm? Is it just harm for now? And things like that. But for me, in my view about this is, despite the fact that we have to leave our children with people, we don't have to leave it with anybody. Trust your instincts. There's a saying that if your mind is saying no, it's probably a no. When you have people around you and you know that you're not comfortable, your instinct is telling you don't leave your children with them, don't leave them with them, because most times these people, they're predators. They know what to do to make you not to suspect anything. They will buy chocolate for the girl. They'll be so close to the family. You know, they tell you don't worry, you can go to work, they can sleep over my house. All these things, you need to be looking. Why is this person showing too much interest in my girls? You know, why the too much? Don't worry, leave them for me all the time. You know, you need to start picking up. You need to be reading in between lines. Don't just leave everything open and just say, oh, it's okay. It's not okay. If a man is always saying to you, leave your 7, 8, 9-year-old girl with them all the time, buying her chocolate, and you see your girl behaving in some strange ways as well, you know, trying to, you know, we know that girls grow very fast and they want to use makeup very fast. But sometimes it's as a result of being abused, being touched in an appropriate way, so they want to respond to that touch to say that they've got that experience. Let's
talk about that touches. You know, there's this new thing about soft touch, hard touch, and I think it's just the best way people can describe it. You hear about the soft touch, you know, you tell your little 3-year-old girl, these are the soft touches, and let's talk about that. So basically, soft and hard touches are, you know, someone can actually put their hand on your laps without it meaning anything. And then, so that's the soft one. And the hard one is when I kind of start stroking you, you know, then I'm kind of trying to get you. I mean, that's just a, you know, very basic example. One could be, oh, by mistake, I just hit you in my hand, just touched you without realizing. And there is that one that is just constantly, you know, the accident becomes a bit more apparent. You know, at what age? And I say age because we have to, you know, sometimes for some people it's not age. At what point do you start talking to your child about, because we need to, you know, it's not a case where we don't want them. If we don't, they find out on the school play, on the playground. They will. You know, there's some things that I found my kids sing. I'm like, oh Lord, where did you hear that from? Or the year 6 boys said they don't even know what it means, but they heard it on the playground. So at what point do we start talking to them? Let me pass over to Jeniffer first and I'll come to you.
Okay. So I think I started speaking to Isabella when she was about 4. But, you know, you have to be selective in the language you use depending on the child's age, right? So at 4, you're just saying, oh, you know, even when you're bathing her, you know, Isabella, this is your body. Nobody's allowed to touch your body. You know, these are your special parts in a kind of childish way. And of course, as she's got older and more mature, I'm speaking to her differently now. I'm speaking to her even about boys. Don't allow any boy to touch your body. That's your body. You know, it's very, very different then. So for me, it's as early as they can understand, because you want them to know and to be protected from as young as possible, without it being, too much information for them, so that
Yeah,
they
'cause
become
that- it
scared,
can
and then
be-
you
yeah.
actually almost make it something that's not.
That it's not. Yeah. Right. Over to you, Chile.
Well, I think I quite agree with her. I was just thinking in my head, I would say 4. And I'll say 4 because at that age, they're actually fully aware of themselves. They're fully aware of the environment. They're fully aware of everything flying around them. And that's the best time. And the best time, again, is when you're beating them. Let them know, this is you. Nobody's allowed to touch you and this part of your body. And you were mentioning about soft touch. There's nothing as such. The truth is, if you're a male, you're not allowed to put your hand on a girl's lap like this. That is inappropriate touching. I have seen people going to jail for that. Okay? A father went to jail, well, is waiting custodian sentences now just because he had 2 daughters, and every time they watch a movie, he would go like that on their laps and get up, and he's doing it almost every time he sits like that. And so the children picked it up and just felt it's inappropriate. And it became a very big issue for the dad. And the dad keeps saying, well, I didn't say anything wrong. And it was wrong. You're not supposed to touch them on their lap, whether you call it soft or you call it hard.
So I guess that's the confusion now, because online you hear the soft and hard touches. It's like, okay, I mean, I got confused about the soft and hard touches, but I mean, it didn't make sense. Don't touch anyway, period. And I know, like, growing up, I remember that, my mom would say to me, you're not allowed to sit on any uncle's laps. You don't. And I still tell my daughters, I tell them, I don't care who the uncle is, even if, do not, do not, because you cannot, like you said, you can't fully trust people.
That's right.
The world is just so cruel, it's so cruel. And like I was saying earlier, I'm going to bring it back to why is it that this often happens to close, it's always the close relatives doing it. It's, I want us to talk about it. Why is it that it's always the close relatives? It's never a stranger.
No, I think it's opportunity, right? These guys are opportunistic. So they're looking for an opening anywhere. And so they become really close to you, and then that's their way in. And I remember a really good campaign, even now in Zimbabwe, it was called Uncle John. And anyone of my age will be able to tell you, if you say, oh, Uncle John, and it was a campaign specifically on child abuse and saying that be careful of Uncle John, because he's going to be the one who will come and touch your child. And parents, listen, when your child says, oh, it's Uncle John, take them seriously. Don't just brush it away.
Yeah.
It's unusual for children to say things like that,
say things,
just from nowhere.
How about when your child you said earlier in terms of kids start using like words and languages that they normally wouldn't use. So I'll give you an example. A friend of mine called me a while ago and she talked about, my daughter, she was talking to her daughter about, appropriate and inappropriate touches. And she was saying, even teachers do, even uncles, even. And then the daughter turned around and said, oh, you mean like teachers pull your, or like bad things like they pull your pants down kind of thing. And she's like 5 years old. That's really disturbing. And she was really, really, really disturbed. And I guess the question is, so I guess she had to probe it a little bit. And the girl said it was someone from her class, one of her classmates, that said that. Now the question is, could it have been that the daughter was hiding something, or could it have been genuinely was another child from? So that's the thing. If we don't tell them, they learn in class. So I guess she was battling with, is it that my child is actually going through this? Someone is doing this to her for her to say that. Let's quickly talk about that, because it's disturbing. We need to talk about, she's shown the sign of, from not talking about the graphic, the daughter's actually said the graphic example. How do you deal with that?
I think you have to balance things up. Children does pick up things very quickly, not necessarily because they're experiencing it, but they eavesdrop a lot. They listen to adults' conversation. When you tell them, go inside, I want to wash something that is not appropriate for their age, they peek through the door. And we used to do that.
We did that, I know, right, growing up.
So children can pick up things, in different ways. But what I would say to such a mom is, sit her down, not immediately, so that she doesn't feel afraid and start lying. So you allow that time to rest. And after another time, maybe you're taking her to McDonald's or somewhere, then talk about the topic again and say to her, where did you get that from? because she wants to eat McDonald's, she will start telling you everything. And it might just be truly that she just picked that up from a friend. I remember when my daughter was about 8 years old, she came back from school and we went to ask her to do shopping. And she started behaving strangely. She was behaving in a way that she wanted me to smack her, beat her, do something. And because this is what I do for a living, I was thinking in my head, what is this girl trying to do? So I refused to do such because I really don't like smacking children. But she was doing a lot of things that I said, don't do. So I decided to keep my cool and just keep saying, okay, go back to the car, sit in the car. And she was trying to, kind of put up some show in the midst of Asda, very big Asda. So I just calmly get her to get to the house. And then she started the part 2 of the drama. And she started doing stuff, throwing things around. So I remember, okay, I don't know what game this girl is playing, but I'm going to smack her with my hand. Obviously, I'm a lawyer, and I know that there's what we call reasonable chastisement, which people don't know about. So I decided to go in, and I said, what are you trying to do? Then she started doing things again. She was only 8. So I said, okay, I'm going to smack you now. You come down. So, okay. So I put my hand, smack it twice, and I said, if you do that again, I'm going to do more than that. Then she started screaming. And then I couldn't comprehend it. I was thinking, what's going on here? And eventually, she then came to the kitchen where I was, and then she threw a knife into a sink beside me. She wasn't throwing the knife at me, but she threw it close to me. So I started saying, I'm going to call the police because you just used knife to threaten me. And the boy said, we saw you throwing the knives. So I have 2 boys and a girl. So the boys went, we saw you throwing the knife. And I said, I'm going to have to call the police because now
that sounds so funny.
You want to kill me. This is attempted murder.
Just to get something out of her.
And she got so scared. Okay. And then she started crying. Okay. Then we got to the bottom of it. Actually, what happened in the day in school was that there's this boy who is in foster care. And I don't know how she managed to mix up with this boy. This boy gathered a lot of girls and said to them, your mom won't allow you to watch TV. Your mom won't allow you to do this and that. I'm in foster care. I do what I want. I get my PlayStation. I get everything. All you need to do is to provoke your parents. They beat you, come to school and tell the teacher.
Oh my
So this boy, coached them to the extent that that's what he did. And that's why he's there. So I had to follow her to school the following morning to go and report that to the school authority, because that means the parents are being punished for something they didn't even do. These boys, provoked the parents, managed to get them to smack him once or twice, and then get them to, I had to go to the school. Why am I telling you this? So that you know that sometimes these children don't speak things up from each other. And sometimes some of them think that life is better off in foster care. So they make parents to do what they're not supposed to do. So all of this put together, is what you need to consider when you hear information from a child. Is it necessary that the child is going through abuse, or is it because she's trying to become someone else? Is she actually been influenced somewhere? So these are the things that you need to really, but it's very hard work to actually.
It is. I think it's just being able to identify and decipher and think, is this real or is this just something she's picked up from? So I know we've just kind of talked about girls and girls and girls. Obviously we know that sexual child abuse it's boys and girls that go through that, even though it feels like the girls are being paid more attention. I remember I think about 4 or 5 years ago, there was this big thing about how a lot of grown men are now speaking up in terms of how they've been sexually abused.
That's right,
now, I know even as parents, we often concentrate and focus more on the girls.
That's right.
Let's talk a little bit about the boys, because I think they're both bad. Let's talk a little bit, because you do have boys. You've got 2 boys. And do you find yourself educating them in that line, or do you still find yourself just focusing more on the girl?
I focus on both boys and girls, because they're quite important. It's quite important for them to know how to protect themselves. They're going to go into this big society where they're going to mix up with all sorts of children, and they need to know what are the things that are allowed and what are the things that are not allowed. My daughter and my second son, they went to Nigeria for 5 years to stay in a boarding school, so they came back very smart. So you can't just give them chocolate. You can't give my girl chocolate and think you've been able to. She will tell you, I don't ask you to buy chocolate from, it's a problem. Yeah. She actually came back with more kind of understanding of abuse of girls. So, and my boy, he came back to thinking, okay, I now know that they're gays and this. And the other day, my boy was telling me, you know, there are gays in my school, but if they come near me, I will kill them. That is because he's now aware of what can be done to his body and what cannot be done to his body.
Which he knows that he knows.
And my baby, who refused to go anywhere, he didn't want to leave England. I keep talking to him about it. Do you know that people can't just touch you? Don't be friends to people who are too much older than you. Because people that grooms all these children, actually people are very older than them. So they appear to be old, and these children tend to just, you know, trust them because of their age. You know, sometimes these predictors, they actually go on like pretending to be 10, 9, and grooming them online as well. So it's not only in the family alone, but even online, children get groomed into all this stuff. So we as parents, we need to have parental control over our internet, over the phone. My children's phone is connected to my iPad. So all their chats, all their Snapchats, everything come back to me. I go through them. I see what they're discussing with their friends.
Which is okay.
I didn't tell them. I can see them. So they don't know.
Well, so just make sure they won't find out about the final phone and all of that good stuff. So still keep them naive.
So these are the things that you need to do. Find a way. You know, the technology is there nowadays. Yeah. When you get a phone for your child, you should get a phone for your child from 8 years old, at least to know where they are, what they're doing. But make sure that phone is connected to your iPad, so you can see what's going on. You can tell when they're, into conversations that are not appropriate for their age. You can see if they're doing things that are not right. So you can easily have a talk with them and say, excuse me, I saw this message that you sent to this your friend. So they know I actually can get into any of the gadgets.
I mean, with my daughter's phone, she's actually not allowed to go to bed with her phone. She has to hand it in every single night, and that's it.
And I think that's a good one. That is really. I've taken that somewhere in my head now, just to make sure. I mean, one thing I don't do is I don't put TVs in children's room. Period. TVs, it's always in the communal area. If you want to watch, if it's bedtime, it's bedtime. Get a book and read. But no gadget, no TV. The most they'll have is a radio and like FMs, and then maybe some CD for them to sing.
We're the same. Just the radio.
Absolutely. I think sometimes it's borderline parents you just want to give them everything they need. Sometimes it's like too much is dangerous sometimes. And I think as parents, we just need to know when too much is too much and when being reasonable. Right. Okay. I knew this wasn't going to be the usual chatty conversation now. So Julie, I know that this is your key area. If someone was watching us right now, and they're thinking, because how people, again, going back to internet days, people just Google and search sexual abuse, child abuse and all of that, and they come across this talk show. How can we help? I'm sure there are helplines there, and obviously you don't have an organization where you kind of help. You're a lawyer. How can we help if someone was going through this and they needed help? What can they do? Are there numbers they could call?
Well, I'm going to split that into two. Two, because the people who have been through that experience, who are now adults, but they're psychologically damaged because of that experience. So my first advice is, please seek advice, speak to your GP. Your GP will refer you to counselors, to psychologists who can help you to snap out of that horrible experience. And if you think the evidence is still clearly there, you can speak to the police, and justice will be sought for you. If you're a child and you're going through this, it's quite difficult. You don't even know who to talk to. You're not sure how your mom's going to take it. You're not sure how what the uncle is going to do if he knows that because oftentimes you're being told they will kill you if you tell your mom. They will tell, sometimes they say to you, they take pictures of you naked, and they say to you, if you tell your mom, I'm going to put this on the internet. So you don't even know what to do. But what you can do is when you get to school next time, make sure you speak to your teacher. Tell your teacher what you're going through. your teacher will help you. This is not a form of punishment for your parents, but this is to make sure that you're well protected. And if you have younger brothers or older sisters, this is to make sure that none of them go through what you're going through. Or you can dial 999 on your mobile phone. You don't have to have credit on your phone. It will go through. Or on your way to school, if you see a police officer, stop them and speak to them about what you're going through. There's so many things you can do. You can go online if you have access to the internet and go on. There's so many organizations. You can try and get through to the local authority near you. Social services, they will all be there for you to assist you. But the worst thing you can do to yourself is not to speak up at all.
Thank you so much, Julie. Jennifer, is there anything else you'd like to add to what Julie said?
No, I think the only other thing is just to make sure that as parents, you're vigilant. You know what's going on with your child. You notice any changes in their behavior. If you see your child, every time somebody comes to the house, wants to go into their room quickly, you need to question why they're doing that. So for me, it's just be vigilant.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for coming today. My heart still feels a little bit heavy now, just talking about this, but hopefully we've been able to help, whether or not as a parent, to identify or start thinking about, how to identify that the child is being sexually abused, or whether or not you're an adult who's been through it but still need help, seek help, whether or not it's psychological or emotional. We'll be leaving some numbers on the screen for you to call and contact if you're going through any form of abuse. It's not just child sexual abuse. And if you'd like any more information, whether or not from Julie, you can email us at info@joemaxwellshow.com. And that's it for us today. If there's anything at all you'd like us to talk about, feel free to email us, join the conversation. If you've experienced this before, we'd like to know how you've been able to deal with it. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, I am your host, Jo Maxwell.